Welcome to Mind Shifters Radio, Monday, March the 26th. Month of March is almost over, and it's time for planting food. So that's our plan here in Bristol, Virginia. Delighted that you're here to join us, and looking forward to what unfolds with our conversation today. I've been communicating with a couple of folks who are saying that they're probably going to call in, so I look forward to how that communication unfolds and what happens with today's show. Appreciate the opportunity to speak with you. Glad that you're here. Welcome, Dawn. And if you're out there in listener land, in the Needle app, there is a little button that says call. And if you have something on your mind and you hit that call button, it will open a small window. And on that window, you will have a question to answer or two. Welcome, Joe. And as you do that, you will see another call button down below light up. And that means we'll be having a conversation. So push that call button and let us know what's on your mind. Delighted that you're here with us, and really feeling blessed by the opportunity to engage in this conversation. I've been enjoying the fact that the last several days we've been getting into more of the power person dynamic, and really look forward to expanding. Actually thinking about writing a new book on the codependent dynamic. It's such a profoundly impactful piece of information to have, and to be able to recognize how it operates in the mind and how to correct it. Because if one does not recognize or have the brain cells for the way that one's mind is fooling them, then how can you correct such a thing? So we're here for correction. We're here to join each other in that project. And I see that Marek is on the line. So Marek, I have hit the number. You and Carrie doing well?
Buenos dias.
Hey,
Buenos
Michael.
dias. Hey, welcome.
Yeah, you know what? I was just listening for 2 hours this morning to your video on in the codependency workshop called week number 6, Intuition, Still Small Voice. I'm listening to it for the second time, and it's
So
on
good.
denial, disassociation, and projection. And it's like my brain is waking up and going, okay, I get it a little more than I did before. Maybe we need to go
Yeah, it's
together.
literally how we create an unconscious mind. Oh, we got a lot of noise in the background there. If somebody can
Yeah,
mute
we're gonna
whatever
move
they're. Okay.
workers.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. Yeah, my take is that it is totally and completely unnatural for a human being to have an unconscious mind. We're not designed to have that unconscious. It's an aberration. And it literally becomes a stranger within our own lives. And the stranger is always projecting into our brain's image of someone else. So we think it's that person or they're the stranger, but it's really ourselves if there's a corrupt data of hostility or fear moving. It's almost humorous when you really start to look at it.
You know, it really blows my mind how you unraveled this. I mean, really, it is such a really, it's like a puzzle. It's like a really important puzzle piece for the operation of a healthy human. And gosh, it's amazing. And just the roots of it. And I actually have, like, I had a young person messaging me this morning who's kind of was almost a relative at one time. And she says, yeah, my husband has been going through a lot of stress, and he tried to divorce me 6 times in the last couple months. And I thought, wow, how do I tell her this in just a succinct way that it can be helpful. Anyway, it's really powerful, powerful stuff. Man. Are
Well,
you still there, or did
I
I lose
really
you?
feel blessed for having been given that piece of information. And let me just share how that workshop came together. About 25 years ago, I was doing a regular yearly intensive at a retreat center up in Hartford City, Indiana. And I completed a weekend retreat that I did with them. And they're like, well, what are you going to do next year? It's like, well, I don't know. How about we do codependence to interdependence? I had no idea. I had no thought. I had never spoken about the topic. And a year went by, and I still didn't know what it was going to be. We were
Wow.
on the road, and there was actually a Catholic priest and a nun, really awesome people who were really about supporting people, really doing their work. He said, Michael, we're the retreat center is empty this week, so if you want to come up early and just get some quiet time, come on up. So that's what I did.
Wow.
And I
Wow.
sat down and I wrote, not from my head, I was given it. I sat down and wrote the whole codependence workshop out, the original
Dang.
one. It was just like bingo, there it was. And it was like, it's a couple days before the workshop, and I still don't even know what I'm going to talk about until I sit down at the retreat center and the whole picture just came. And my take is it literally runs the world. That power
Yes.
person dynamic under stress, people will
Yes.
do whatever their power person did to them that they hated the most, and it runs the world, and it's
Yes.
crazy.
Yes. Amazing. So, how do we, I mean, I don't know if this is a realistic question to ask, but can we summarize it into a nutshell that it could be transmitted easily, the idea to people that just have never even heard of it before?
Well, we do have a 2-hour video on codependence to interdependence, but the summary, to even take that 2-hour video into a summary would be that 3 things occur in somebody's life, and whenever that happens, it results in the installing, and I'm talking like you install a program in a computer,
Yes, yes, yes.
installing a program that literally overwrites and overrides everything in the system until it's resolved. And the 3 things that occur to bring it about are, and it's usually between a parent and a child, though not always. These 3 things occur. It can be with anybody, but again, it's usually a parent and a child. And that is the parent has more power over the child than the child has, number one. Number two, the parent is not functioning as a human being, is not functioning as love. And number three, the child perceives the circumstance as survival. When those 3 things occur, when you think in terms of truth, to really achieve healing, you have to be working with truth. And there are all kinds of perceptual constructs that we work within, and even perceptual constructs, when we work within them, that can improve things, but they're not based in the truth. Therefore, they don't produce actual healing. So when you think of this body mind unit of the child being an energy system, what happens when those 3 things occur is the field of the child opens wide. When it opens on an energetic level, it literally becomes a sponge that absorbs every frequency that is in the environment. And from there on out, once that dynamic is installed in a mind, whenever you watch somebody doing a behavior that is based in some form of hostility or fear, a safe question to ask them, and I say safe from the point of view of you already know the answer. It may not necessarily be safe because when people are in blockage of this dynamic, in blockage of truth, when truth shows up, their stress shoots through the roof. So they can turn into attack mode
Right.
when that happens. But in the future, A person with that power person dynamic instilled in their minds is limited to three behaviors and three behaviors only throughout their whole lives until that's resolved. And the behavior that is going to be active at any given moment will be determined by the level of stress that someone's under. And recognizing, and I don't know anywhere else on the planet where you'll find this piece of information. Over the years, I've done several workshops on stress. I've listened to stress experts, and they can all tell you ways to soften your stress and reduce your stress.
Right.
But I've never found anybody that can tell you how stress is created. How is stress created? Stress is created by setting a goal. Whenever I set a goal, I create a stress in my mind, period. People talk about situations being stressful. There are no stressful situations. If I don't have a goal about what's happening in the environment, I have no stress about it.
Right.
Several people gather around and this thing happens and most people think is horrific. And somebody stands and looks and they say, well, what do you think? Yeah, I don't know, nothing. Just no impact on me. Why not? Because I don't have a goal for it. Therefore, my mind does not produce a construct about it. So, and to me, that leads into when you get to the mechanics of the mind, the understanding that Yeshua had of teaching people how to forgive that involves goals. And you'll notice that you're never upset with somebody. In fact, you never even have a conversation about somebody that you have no goals about. You don't say a word about what to do.
Right.
Even if their behavior's off the wall, crazy, bizarre, there's no conversation to be had unless you have a goal, a stake in the outcome of that situation. So when I
Right.
recognize, and that's why the daily forgiveness process is so important because it keeps the stress level down so you don't end up defaulting to the power person dynamic. So again,
It's amazing.
three behaviors, three levels of stress. When there's little or no stress, the mind will automatically do whatever it did to get along with its power person. So let's say, as an example, let's say I am known as Mr. Nice Guy or Ms. Nice Guy. And in every interaction, I'm just the nice guy. That's all. Everybody goes, yeah, he's such a nice guy. It's cool. But
That's
then,
me.
there you
Did
go.
you hear
But
that?
then
Marek says
what
that's him.
happens? Yeah, what happens, Mr. Nice Guy, when the stress starts to build? Is all of a sudden, the persona changes, the behavior changes. When stress starts to build, I'll move out of the persona and the behaviors related to Mr. Nice Guy, and I'll move into whatever I did in order to get along with my power, in order to resist and survive with my power person. So that might mean that I become Mr. Snarky. I might be married to somebody for 10 years before enough stress comes up that I move into that alternate personality. And all of a sudden, my spouse looks at me and goes, what happened? You're Mr. Nice Guy. I've been with you for 10 years. I've never seen you do this kind of, let's say, in that, stress building stage, one becomes angry and attacking. And you've been with this person for 10 years. It's like, what's wrong with them? What just happened? What happened is the stress level went up. And there's a thing in mind called the automatic decision system. I assume you've covered that part in the self-study course on the codependence. So when the automatic decision system moves to that new level of stress, it sends up a whole different set of behaviors. And now the behaviors one is prompted to do are the ones that they did to resist and survive with their power person.
Right.
And then when they've got enough goals that are being violated by themselves or someone else, and they become ultra stress, that's when they'll kick into doing whatever their power person did to them that they hated the most. And my take is the reason for that is because to every child, their parent is a God. And God always won over them. And so if one is in this ultra stress state, has no idea what to do, they look into their unconscious and go, what did God do? My power person, my parent. How did they win over me in this type of situation?
Dang.
And they take the advice of their own power person doing the thing they hated the most because it's what beat them down and what overtook their own volition. and they'll do that behavior to whoever, even themselves is available, whoever's involved. And notice that nobody, unless they're just a totally, generally miserable person, nobody ever is upset with somebody who's fulfilling all the goals they have for them. Notice that if everybody in your life's doing the goals you have for them, they're cooperating with it, you're pretty cool, you're pretty happy with them. But by God, let them violate a goal that you hold for them. And what happens? Stress shoots through the roof. Not because of what they did, but because of the goal I had about what they did. And if those goals become deeply enough embedded and strongly enough resonated, that's when one can, in an instant, shoot up into that power person dynamic. And literally, they want to usurp God. They want to become the God in this situation, the power person. So they take the advice of, well, in the worst of the worst situations, in order for my power person to win over me, what did they do? Okay, well, that's what I'm going to do. And now they're doing what the power person did to them they hated the most, because they didn't like being, overcome and overtaken and controlled. But if that's the behavior that worked against them, then from the unconscious, totally unnatural state of mind, that's the behavior they'll do. And it's only when stress is at its ultimate level. So one can, there are two directions you go. You can just play that out and see how it works, see if it's, horrific enough or what have you to win over them or to get what you want. Or you can go in and cancel the goal, reduce your stress, and then come back to the same situation with a sane mind. And a sane mind connected to love will always produce a better outcome.
That's
That'd be
incredible.
my take.
There it is. That's magic.
That's it. And obviously, Yeshua or Jesus, when he spoke, he knew about this puzzle piece. And I know he gave you clues.
Yes.
Can you go
Again,
into those?
that
No?
he knew that the key was to cancel the goal, to forgive.
Right.
And sadly, when that was taken out of the Aramaic language and interpreted, there are no Aramaic scripture, or pardon me, there are no Greek scripture translations in the world at all. Never have been, never will be. What they call translations are gross misinterpretations of the words.
Interesting.
So now in the Greek game, it becomes okay. So you're the object of attention that's not fulfilling the goal that I have for you. So it's all your fault, but it's okay. I'll let you off the hook for what's happening inside of me. So now my whole conversation is about you because, of course, it's obvious you're the problem in my life. Well, this pain is moving in my physiology, but I have nothing to do with it. My mind is showing me a picture where it's clearly your fault. And unless I collapse that construct in my mind, I'm going to walk away from the conversation, having a conversation in my head about you and what you've done wrong and how it's all your fault and your problem. And that single conversation, when we walk away from a conflict, is an indicator that I'm lost and stuck in codependence. When I can make the shift, when I'm in that upset state and all the drama and trauma is moving inside of me, instead of having a conversation about the pictures, the false pictures my mind is forming about the pictures in my head, if I walk away going, oh, I'm really feeling this pain in my shoulder or my back or my heart or my head or wherever it is, I'm going to have a conversation about me and what's going on in my energy system and clean it up. Now the situation that literally yesterday would send one to hell gives one an opportunity to enter heaven. And heaven is nothing more. That word, properly translated from the Aramaic language, is the community of love. That's all. So we can live in that community, and the primary place we live in it is in our heads, or we can live in the community of hell, and the primary place where people live in that community is in their own bodies, their own heads.
That makes
It just
more and
changes the
more
whole dynamic.
sense.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm with you.
And when we behave in this way that you're talking about, and we're able to go in and cancel our goal and relate from a place of love instead of stress, we begin creating the community of love, which is heaven.
Precisely. So remember, Yeshua said, somebody tells you this community is over there, over there, over there. Believe them not. It is here. It is now. It is within you. It's available to all of us all the time. But if we don't know how to get there, if we keep living in the constructs, in the ancient Aramaic, the whole concept of Satan was the resistor, one who misleads. And perception is a construct that reflects that mislead, that projection, taking literally the energy in myself that I've dissociated from and created an unconscious mind with, using that energy to build my brain's image of everybody else and pretending it's got nothing to do with me, even though it's stored in my physiology and I'm the one who's feeling it. So one of the things that to me was a big insight was kind of like a real mind shifter for me, was recognizing that if I dissociate from the cause of my own pain, I'm still experiencing the pain, but I get to use the content, the information in my mind, and convert that information to pictures of everybody else. So I think my pain is about everybody else, but I'm still in my pain. When I collapse the construct, the false construct of projection and codependence, and this is one of the toughest pieces of the thing to get through, of the whole healing process to get through, all of a sudden I'm no longer in relationship with my pain, believing that it's about the picture in my mind, them. I have to come back into direct relationship with my own pain. And that's one of the biggest things that people are in resistance to. No, I don't want to experience that directly. Now, my message to that person is, well, you're experiencing it anyway, but
Did you
there's no
say
resolution when you're projecting it.
did you
Go ahead.
say experiencing my own pain? You dropped off kind of right at the end there.
Oh, okay, excuse me. Yeah, if I am in pain, but I'm taking literally the energetic dynamics in myself that I've denied and dissociated from and projected them. The cycle is I deny, I think or speak as though something outside of me is the cause of what's moving inside of me. You hurt me. So now we've established there's hurt happening in my physiology. And since I make you the object of attention of my hurt, I'm saying to my mind, don't show me that this hurt is mine or is in my physiology. Show me a picture about how they're causing it. So the mind being an evidential device and converting information, that is thoughts, into pictures, creates a picture of them causing my pain. Now, the kind of the interesting thing about that is by doing that, we haven't escaped from our pain. The pain goes on. The only thing we've done is escape from the opportunity to be able to resolve our pain. We've given away the power to resolve our pain because, of course, the pain's caused by you and I can't change you. I mean, I can
Right.
scream and yell and rage and do whatever I want, but I can't change you. And so my pain goes on. If you've resonated something painful in me and I'm in denial of it, if my conversation's about you, I'm dissociated from that pain and I still have it. The beauty when I realize and make a new choice that, okay, I've got this pain happening in my physiology. I believe it's about something outside of me. But if I collapse that false picture by canceling the goal that drives my mind to use my pain to make pictures of you, then that whole projection, and that's the real meaning of projection. The culture talks about projection as taking something that's inside of us and putting it outside of us. That's not projection at all. That's externalization. Projection is
Mm.
when I use information that's inside of me to build pictures of you. And now I projected literally the content of my mind into, or my physiology, into my brain's image of you. And you,
Mm.
therefore, show up as a picture in my mind, literally hallucinated out of my pain. And now I'm cut off from the ability to change my pain. When I
Wow.
cancel the goal that creates that, and I collapse, rather when I give up this Greek belief that I'm supposed to forgive everybody else for what's going on inside of me, because of course I live in blame, when I realize that the pain's inside of me and I cancel the goal that drives my projection that it's about you, then I get to drop directly into my pain. And that's not Dr. Feelgood.
And then how do
But
we
that's a
deal
key
with
part of
our
the
own
process.
pain? How do we enter into recognizing that the pain is our own and then resolving it?
Well, first of all, you've got a collapse projection. So, if you look at the worksheet process, that's that worksheet. When you look at the worksheet that you're using now currently, that is probably worksheet number, in terms of design, at least worksheet design 3000. Might be 5,000.
Wow.
I don't know. I mean, there were
Wow.
times when in the early days of developing that worksheet, that I would redesign it, make major thought changes in it 3 or 4 times in a day. And back in the early days, the way that I came about teaching Aramaic forgiveness was, well, I was teaching other stuff. It was way back, before when we first met.
Right.
I was teaching other material, and I came in touch with this idea of Aramaic forgiveness, and I would mention it in my workshops on occasion. I'd say something about, canceling goals in Aramaic is forgiveness. And I didn't know at that point that what was really happening was it was collapsing perception and giving us access to our own unconscious dynamics. But I mentioned that, and over a period of time, I had several people who came back to me and said, I've been doing that canceling goals thing, and that's really powerful. And, I
Mm.
hadn't really bought it. It was just something I mentioned. But after I had a few people come back to me, I started to look. It's like, that's really profound. And from the point when I started to work with the Aramaic to the point where I could, and I don't think I really had this piece of the puzzle at that last intensive you were at. I hadn't fully understood it, but it took me about 35 years to get to the point where I could explain what and why forgiveness works from the Aramaic. You know,
Right.
10,000 brain cells are firing measurable units of electrical activity happening in the brain. The maximum amount of data that goes into conscious awareness, our perception, the construct, the picture that our mind shows us, is 9 bits of data. Obviously, something has to determine which 9 bits of data the mind is going to use. What determines that? The goal that I hold. If I have a goal that goes in one direction, let's say in a certain situation, my uh, goal was to uplift and support you, and that happens, I'm a happy camper. But if my goal was to damage and hurt you, and the result was uplifting and supporting you, I'd be very unhappy at you being uplifted and supported because my goal was different. So the goal is what drives the mind, or I like to use the idea of a recruiter, a sports recruiter. They go around to universities and they recruit different individuals who think they'll be good for their team. Well, that's exactly what a goal does. Energetically, it filters through literally quadrillion bits of information all the way back through our genes and looks for the data that is resonated by the goal, brings that forward, and now we have this 9-bit space called perception, where the result of what that goal has recruited from within me produces a picture, what I call my reality. It took me 35 years to understand that that was what was going on. And when you canceled a goal, that goal being the driver for that particular mental construct, allowed that particular mental construct to collapse. And then
Right.
when that construct collapsed, it collapsed in on its own footprint. So now I had access to my own unconscious mind, which fits right in line with Carl Jung's awesomely powerful insight. Until the unconscious becomes conscious, it will direct our lives, and we'll call it fate. I'll think
Right.
something out there is doing it to me because it happens over and over and over again. Yeshua had exactly the same insight. He didn't say, pardon me, don't take care, or take care of the head, for out of it are the issues of life. He didn't say, take care of the other guy, for out of him are the issues of life. He said, take care of the heart. In Aramaic, that would be the unconscious. Take care of your own unconscious, or out of it are the issues in your lives. If one has been brought up from the earliest ages in a family system, in a culture like our Western culture, where virtually everybody is a very devout religious card-carrying member of the one world universal religion of blame. They
Right.
become brainwashed in that religion, and it's all everybody else's fault. And making that turnaround is huge. And going into one's own unconscious dynamics that's how you take care of the heart. That's how you clean up what's going on in the unconscious.
Right.
Another word
And
for that
that's
is the desert. You know, that story of the Jews wandering in the desert for 40 years. How do they,
yeah.
do you think they were really lost in a hot, sandy, 35 square mile place for 40 years? No,
Mm.
that was the unconscious. What had to happen to get out of the unconscious? The key in that particular parable is the old generation had to die off. And it doesn't mean everybody in old physical bodies has to physically die. The root of the word generation is genere, it means cause. All of the old causes held within your own dissociated mind have to be removed. Otherwise, you'll function unconsciously and life will keep coming and biting you in the butt. And you'll go, why are they doing this to me again?
Right.
Took 35 years to understand that simple explanation. It's so
And
simple now that I know it. It's like, why wasn't that obvious? You know why it wasn't obvious? I didn't have the brain cells for it.
right.
And it
And
took
you took
that
a long
long of working with it and working with it and working with it and working with it to go, oh, okay. And gradually each piece of the puzzle came together. It's like, that's the dynamic. That's what's happening.
well, to me, this also is a more uh sophisticated, a more complete, a more succinct way of saying how our thoughts create our reality and how we change ourselves to change the world. Because just like forgiveness, that whole idea has been kind of misinterpreted or generalized. But really, when we begin changing our internal constructs, or how we see the world and how we experience our reality is going to be based on our internal constructs. And then when we change those, we're going to change how we see it on the outside. We're going to change what shows up for us, etc. Right? Hello, hello. I'm not
Oh,
hearing
excuse
you,
me.
Michael. I don't know.
Oh, excuse me. Yeah.
Okay.
So
Yeah.
whenever
So whenever
I'm getting feedback now. Okay, feedback's gone. So whenever I'm in an unconscious state, whatever's moving in me by definition is energy. And whenever anything moves, it creates an energy wave and so calls forward an experience into my life. And I see that we've got a note in the chat from Carrie saying, I'm codependent on the patriarchy. So then, Carrie, the objective there would be to start to look at and do worksheets around what are the goals for those that you put in the category of patriarchy, and then going back to the very earliest power person dynamic, who was a representative of the patriarchy that probably is your power person, and to start canceling the early goals, get back into that. You know, in the I'm trying to remember, Carrie, I think you've done the Codependence Intensive, so you might want to go back to and do the long form, you know, the long form that came out of that intensive. For the first 25 years of teaching the Codependence Intensive, the Power Person worksheet was one page. Because of the awesome work that everybody was doing in that particular intensive, that one page worksheet turned into a 14-page worksheet. So I suggest you look at the potential people who were of the patriarchy, or what your mind categorizes as patriarchy, and start doing that 14-page worksheet. And that will uncover whatever that was about for you of it, would be my offering. So we've got Carrie and Carrie. Carrie that we're talking to in Marek, starting with a C,
Right.
and then Carrie with a K was who asked that question. So I was just throwing that in.
Yeah, I have you
So
got
is
it.
that making sense?
If she wants to call in and chat with you too, I can hang up here easily.
Well, you don't need to hang up if you want to get on the line, Carrie. Then we can have a three-way conversation. We're all in this together.
Such good questions. I mean, this is really such a key, so important, such a huge puzzle piece to our human condition, which has been run out of by perceptions outside of love. And I recognize that in myself and what I need to keep working on. And how exciting.
How exciting. And the fact that, you know, we get to interact with the whole community. Again, that words, the words kingdom of heaven is literally in Aramaic would be translated into English as the community of love, is that we're developing that community, and each person who engages asks the question. Without the questions of this community over the decades of doing this work, I wouldn't be half the distance I am with this understanding. And I recognize, if you look in my book, which I wrote 30 years ago, 30 plus years ago, you'll see that the acknowledgments were usually acknowledgments. Well, there are two or three people. I acknowledge my mom, my dad, my spouse, my children, whatever. I think that their number of names, if I remember correctly, something like 500 plus. And it's literally people who have been asking the questions over the years that helped me to get to this level of understanding, and
Yes.
who did the work and shared their insights. It's come from the whole community. It's not something I assembled it, but it's not all mine. So I appreciate everybody who engages in the conversation.
Yes.
And Carrie does have her hand up, so I'm going to
Cool.
push the button and let's have a 3 or 4-way conversation. Hey, Carrie, welcome. Are you with us?
Can you hear me?
You're loud and
Can
clear,
you
young
hear me?
lady. Good to hear your voice. Yes.
Yes.
Yep.
So, you and I talked about this a little bit ago, and I've been kind of working with that concept of feeling unsafe at the moment, and how this is all coming up in my face.
Yes.
And uh, when I think about my early experiences with the power person and codependency, I've always seen my mother as the power person in my relationship.
Right.
Uh, but I've come to understand that doesn't necessarily mean that that doesn't have patriarchal tendencies. But I
Absolutely.
had, but I also had a lot of experiences as a child too, with um, a lot of really subtle kind of microaggressions and things like that my whole life. So I guess I don't even know where to start with doing
Well,
worksheets.
yeah, my take would be that patriarchy tends to be seen as male, but my take would be that it's more about an authoritarianism system. And, both males and females can be the authoritarian type person, and therefore a symbol of the patriarchy of control rather than control and damage rather than nurturing and support would be my take. So it doesn't necessarily mean it was father, mother, or big sister, big brother, what have you. It is more about, to me, it's more about the authoritarian, someone who's in a position who can do me damage and holds the sort of Damocles over my head. And if that has happened, and I've absorbed those dynamics, then one of the things I would be looking at is how I want to hold the sort of Damocles over somebody else's head, resolve that in myself, and then go to the next level. And that's where I suggest that 14-page worksheet, because it really hacks into the deepest dynamics of the codependent relationship. And so I'd suggest, digging that worksheet out and doing some work with mom in that regard.
Yeah, yeah. Is that worksheet also online or? Uh,
No, it's not, and we purposely haven't put it online. And the reason, but you did the codependence intensive, didn't you?
I did it twice actually. I did
Yeah,
it once in person and once online.
right. So in the online intensive, that's where that one, up until that online intensive, And in the self-study, we actually put together 2 of those. I'm not sure which one you were in, but it was as a result of the in-depth processing that happened in that intensive that it went from what it had been for 25 years as a one-page sheet into that 14-page sheet that just delved into every possible influence from the power person. So that should be, if you go into the email that you would have gotten from
Uh-huh.
Jeanette M. Shaw,
Yeah.
if you go into that email, that worksheet should be in there in the spreadsheet with the worksheets in it. If not, drop me a text and I'll make sure that we get a copy to you.
Okay, because I do remember doing that worksheet, and it was at first it was a little intimidating, but as I got into it, I found that it was really revealing, and it went step by step through everything. So it was very good.
Yeah, and the reason why we haven't put that one online is because, you know, that old idea, if you got to have the eyes to see and the ears to hear, that just handing someone that worksheet, they really need to go through that whole codependence process to be able to make sense of it, of how to even use it. So
Yeah.
that's really the only worksheet that we don't have online. I mean, our objective is to make everything available, but it just wouldn't serve to hand that to someone without having that intensive behind them. So that's why it's
Right.
not online.
Right. And I've come to discover that it's uh the underlying feeling is not feeling safe.
So then I do a worksheet where I would name whoever would seem to be your primary power person. And remember that we can have many power persons. The way to determine who your power person is when you're ultra stressed, whose behavior do you do? So I can have one power person, let's say in my life in regard to money. I can have a different power person in regard to relationships. I can have a different uh, power person in regard to neighbors. I could have a different power person in regard to work. But the key way that I tell who the power person is whose behavior when am I replicating when I'm under
Mm,
that stress? And that's who I
okay.
do the worksheet on. And I'd make the goal, I desire to be safe. Now, the desire to be safe, and one of the keys in doing the forgiveness process is you really need to identify precisely what the goal is that's driving this particular behavior. So while on the surface it may seem to be, well, I just want to be safe, the real goal might be, well, what I want is somebody who will really be there for me and take care of me. What I really want is somebody who really sees me and gets me. What I really want is somebody who supports me expressing as the unique human being that I am. All of those things would come under that heading of wanting to be safe. But I could cancel the goal to be safe till the cows come home and it won't access or or give me access to that part of my unconscious. Remember that the goal is what recruits the energy that produces the pained perception. If I cancel a goal other than the one that's really behind this particular pain perception, that perception is not going to drop into, is not going to collapse into the unconscious dynamic where I need to do the resolution. It's only when I find the precise goal that's really driving this. And it could be, a wide variety of things in any given circumstances. And I think that's the reason why when they said to Yeshua, how many of these darn worksheets do we have to do? Is 7 enough? He said, no, 77 times 70, an infinite number of times till you get to the precise goal that's driving this. And sometimes those goals, they're not even our own. Uh, at conception, we come with a whole load of unresolved goals. The only way that in the human system a goal can be resolved is either it's canceled or it's achieved. And if you think, just looking at our lives and what we've been through, think about what people in our past have been through and had no idea how to resolve. I mean, literally, we are living, at least according to one group up in Canada that I did some research on, they're studying peace on Earth. What is the state of peace? And they're saying that we are in the most peaceful time that's ever existed on Earth. I mean, look at the crap that's going down, but that's what they're telling us. More people are being fed, more people have access to water and housing and actual children being taken care of than ever before. So think about what kind of goals did our ancestors hold in this primitive, war-making, patriarchal, might makes right culture.
So I'm wondering if where I actually need to start then is not so much with who the power people are, but it's more like start identifying a whole list of goals under that umbrella of feeling safe that really
Exactly.
get to the um, core issues, and maybe doing a mind shifter on that would help.
Yeah. You look at several of the religions on the earth, like the Buddhists, for instance. If you see a Buddhist, oftentimes they'll have their hand in a little bag. It's like, what are they doing with that little bag? They've got beads and they're going from one bead to the other bead to the other bead to the other bead. You look at Catholicism and they've got beads and they go from one bead to another bead. In fact, the Catholic set of beads, there are 10 small beads and then there's a big one, a fancy one, and then there are 10 small beads and a fancy one and 10. What does that symbolize? That symbolizes dropping into the unconscious. It gives the mind a way to start to drop in. And, you do 10 small prayers, then you do a big one, or at least what, I've been misinterpreted as prayers. And what does that mean? Well, you'll work with, you'll dance around an issue, perhaps with 10 different pieces of work that you do. And then bingo, there's the core of it. There's the biggie. And that's where, a person's on the big beats. And that's a symbolic way of of assisting people in getting into their own unconscious. And of course, using the worksheet is basically doing another tool to help to move into the unconscious dynamic. So I think you're right on is start to do that. It's not about identifying a person. It's about whatever, I can be walking down the street and I hear somebody's voice shouting and it sounds like abuse. I can't even see who it is. I don't know who it is. I don't know whether it's a man's voice or a woman's voice, but I hear that shouting, and that can be, what do I want from that person and I can't even see, and I have no idea who it is? What do I want? Well, it sounds like they're attacking and abusing someone. Oh, what do I want? I want them to be nurturing to this someone. I want them to be taking care of. That might be the goal that I need to be canceling. And that will starting with that will tend to take us deeper and deeper into until we've weakened or forgiven, literally removed the energetic charge from enough brain cells that fabricate or produce this pained reality until we've accessed enough of those that the whole construct falls apart in the mind. And that's when you're freed of it. And that's why I think Yeshua said 77 times 70 worksheets, because you've got to dissolve the underlying dynamic. And at what point does it collapse? Does it collapse when you hit a critical mass of 70% of the brain cells involved, or 20 or 80? Or, I don't know, but as long as the mind, anything in the environment can trigger that pain perception, I want to look at what the goal is for that part of my environment.
Oh, yeah, thank you.
A thought comes. There was a gentleman I was visiting a little while back, and he had chickens, and he was telling me about how brutal the roosters are with the chickens. That could be a key way into that whole patriarchal dynamic for that individual, that there was, some sort of a disturbance about, geez, that was so brutal. So, like anything in the environment that can resonate something that my mind that takes my mind away from being plugged into the active presence of love is my next piece of work. Does that make sense?
Yes, thank you very much. I'm going to get started on that.
And I'd like to introduce you, Carrie, to Carrie.
Hi, Carrie.
Hi,
So I think Carrie
Carrie.
and Marek are still there.
Yeah, we're both still here. We've been
Hello.
we've been on mute because of construction in our zone here, but yes.
Okay.
Great to meet you, Carrie, and know another sister on the path.
Yeah.
It's great work.
All right.
Onward and forward.
All right. Anybody with another question or thought? We're here. We're on it. Let's go for it.
Hey, Michael, I'm going to just toss out. I've had a hard time getting onto the app. I don't know if you want to. I don't know if you feel like going through how that. Sometimes when I go onto my phone and I go to the Needle app, I just can't get Mindshifters Radio to pop up, and it's the way they have it typed in is Mindshifters Radio, all one word.
Yeah.
Marek had to open
Do you
it
get
on
a,
his
a,
phone.
a text notification? Do you
We
get a text
do,
notification that the show's
we
on?
do, but it takes us to the website when we click on that. It takes us to the web
Right.
page,
Well, when you get the
not to the
text, yeah, when you get the text notification, then that's when you want to open the app.
Oh,
You don't want to
okay.
go. You don't want to go to the web page. It just so anybody who gets that text notification can go to the web page and can listen, but they don't interact with it. You have to download the app. And, well, you've already selected us as a favorite because you're getting that notification. But when you get that, you don't want to go to that page. You want to open the app and
But
then
we need to wait until
take
we
us
get the
the live.
notification, because then that means you're live, right? That makes sense.
Right.
Okay.
Exactly.
All
Right.
right.
You know, the needle was not set up to do two separate shows in one the way that we've always done with Blog Talk and or at least the last 5 or 6 years with Dr. Tim doing the first hour and us doing the second hour. So Dr. Tim has to close out and shut down the control panel to the app. Then I have to open it and I have to put in the notification that it's Jeannie and I,
Okay.
and I'm hoping that the notice came through. I haven't looked yet to see that it came through properly today.
Yeah, I got the notice today.
Yeah, we got the notice. We both got the notice, but just didn't realize that subtlety of having to wait until the notice shows up. I think I
And then-
tried to prop on ahead of it, and then I couldn't get into anything. And then
Yes, and then when I went to the app, then you were right there on the page, and all I had to do was click you.
because he had already gotten the notice.
Right.
We're not hearing you, Michael. Are you there? Hello, hello.
Hey, yes, I'm here. Okay, I'd switch pages to look at something at
Okay.
another part of another screen, and that cuts me off. So I have to open the control panel once Dr. Tim shuts it down, and I have to edit it and put Jeannie and my name in, and that hasn't been working recently. It did work today. That's what I was looking to see if it came through. That's why my voice disappeared. And so I have to do that edit, and then I have to send it. Then you're notified it's starting, and I hit the initiate button, and we're on
Okay.
the air.
And yesterday you weren't
Technology.
there, but I went on after Dr. Tim was on, and I was able to select his recording from the previous hour, and it played it.
Right. Okay. Well, and on occasion, and this is why you want to have a second app downloaded. Like yesterday, I was in the air flying, so I couldn't do the show live. I
Right.
was coming back from Kansas City. Went out to meet my new grandbaby. Had 2 weeks
Cool.
with him in my son's family. It was awesome.
Nice.
So when we can't do a pre-recorded show on Needle, I'm hoping maybe that's something that will come along. But so there's a second app that we use, Podbean, Podbean. If you download that and register the same way you did with Needle, then if we're doing Podbean pre-recorded show, you'll get a text notification the same way as you do with Needle, so you'll know which one we're doing. But that's just a little complexity that we have no way to overcome at this point.
Great. We'll have to do that. And I'll look forward to this show getting loaded that we just did and maybe sharing it with, you think it by tomorrow or something, it'll be up on your YouTube channel and I can share it with
Yeah.
the young lady who messaged me this morning. I think there's a lot of good explanation there.
Yes.
Okay.
It should be there to rock and roll, and it would be delightful if she has questions. We're here to support and look
Yeah.
forward to every question we get, because it always opens another shade of understanding, another piece of the puzzle. And I don't know how many pieces there are in this jigsaw puzzle called life, but they're tiny pieces. And how many quadrillion are there? And the only person in all of the search that I've done that has at least the most complete picture of the box top for the jigsaw puzzle is this guy Yeshua from 2,000 years ago.
Wow.
He had it. And it's sad that people have turned it into religion rather than this is life, this is physiology, this is psychology, this is genetics.
Very exciting.
So deep kudos to Yeshua and the work he did 2,000 years ago.
Yes.
And I'd also like to acknowledge the gentleman named Dan McDougald, who was my partner in the Kavoris Institute project, and or at least the work we did with the Kavoris manuscript. And he's passed on, but back in the early days when I first was introduced to the Aramaic, came in touch with Dan, he was just amazing in his dedication and what he did to
What a
put the whole thing
great
together.
experience to have had. Very cool.
Yes. Yeah, he was a genius. Interesting, he was in the Navy during World War II, and they did an IQ test on men in the Navy. He was number 3
Wow.
in the whole U.S. Navy in World War II.
Wow.
Just an amazing, amazing man, amazing genius, and amazing dedication to this work. Just
Are there
what a
any
gift to the world.
recordings of you and him, Michael? Are there any recordings of him with you?
I don't have any recordings. There was actually a whole set. We did a Laws of Living class together at Heartland and recorded it, and
Right.
those recordings disappeared. It may be at some point I will find them, but I think there was someone at Heartland several years ago who decided they'd like those recordings and took them. Not sure, but
Yeah. Well,
we
many
actually had a whole
blessings.
Laws of Living class that we did, a 2-week, 16-day class.
Wow.
We would do a Laws of Living class at Heartland every year. Over a period of
I'd
about 15
love
years or
to
so.
hear those if you ever find anything.
We'll be if I find them, we'll be getting them out for sure.
I wrote about him and your history with him in my books.
Say it again.
I wrote about him and your history with him in my books. I must have, maybe I read it at your website, and I'm not sure exactly where I got the info, but yeah, I did write about it.
Cool. Well, if you're
Yeah.
going to mention your books, you should give us the title so anybody who wants to touch into those can access them too.
Yeah, it's the 21st Century Superhuman Book Series, and there's several books. And my website is now called yoursuper.life, but a person can get there by just searching for 21st Century Superhuman. They're on Amazon. They're available. They can get courses through me with them, and they're really great. And the one Mind is, a lot of it is about this work that you do. And happy to be a transmitter of our emerging consciousness.
Awesome. And I'll remind everybody that we do have this weekend is Mind Shifters and Still Point Breathing. If you're not a part of it and you'd like to be, drop Jeannie a note, JEANIE at WHYagain.org. We do that once a month with the Mind Shifters Still Point Breathing Club. And in May, the last week in May, we're scheduled to do a 9-day Why Is This Happening to Me Again intensive here in Virginia, just about 15 minutes up the road. There's a wonderful retreat center called Jubilee House, and we're going to be doing the 9-day Why Is This Happening to Me Again? And I'm working on doing a new flyer. We're going to be doing a totally new food program as part of that, and that flyer will be out within a few days. If you're not on our mailing list, you might want to go to our website, whyagain.org, and down at the bottom, you'll find a button where you can just join our mailing list, and that'll make sure you get our newsletter, and it'll have the information on the food program we're doing and the 9-day Why Is This Happening to Me Again? Residential intensive. In the meantime,
Very
everybody,
exciting. Yay.
yay, yeah.
Cool.
Everybody have the best year yet of your eternal life. It's an awesome gift to give the world. Blessings. Bye-bye.